Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're going to clinically dissect two massive and entirely separate geopolitical developments that dropped right at the end of July 2026. On one hand, we've got a highly publicized intelligence claim about a huge deployment of North Korean forces heading to Russia. And, on the other hand, a high-level diplomatic proposal out of Kazakhstan aiming to freeze the war completely. Our goal today is to examine the credibility of both, figure out exactly what is independently verifiable, and carefully separate the hardcore facts from the allegations. And most importantly, we are going to do all of this without falsely linking these two events together.
Okay, so first things first, we have to isolate our two key variables. Variable 1 is a primary source allegation directly from Ukraine stating that 30,000 North Korean troops are preparing to stage in Russia. Now, Variable 2 is a confirmed diplomatic move by Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, formally proposing to freeze the conflict. It's absolutely crucial that we approach these as totally independent developments that just happen to be occurring at the same time.
So, here's our roadmap for the analysis. We'll start by establishing the two signals, examine the unverified troop claim, untangle the North Korean figures, analyze Tokayev's war freeze proposal, look at the contemporaneous Caspian context, and finally, wrap up with scenarios and future indicators.
Section 1. Two signals, different evidence, establishing the baseline of facts and claims.
Before we get into the weeds, we need a strict baseline. We have to clearly delineate what's actually verified from what are simply uncorroborated claims. So, the confirmed facts? They include President Tokayev's freeze proposal based on the Istanbul 2.0 framework and Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov's explicit rejection of it. But then you have claims, like 30,000 North Korean troops staging in Voronezh, or transfers of brand new ballistic missile launchers. Right now, those sit squarely in the claimed category. Oh, and to complicate things further, the historical context around the August 2025 Anchorage summit, that remains heavily disputed between the US and Russia. Keeping these categories confirmed, claimed, and disputed totally distinct is the foundation of everything we're about to discuss.
Section 2. The unverified troop claim. Zooming in on the Voronezh allegation.
All right, let's focus on that first variable. On July 25th, President Zelenskyy stated in an official address that 30,000 North Korean troops are preparing to stage in Russia's Voronezh region and that preparations have supposedly been underway since June. He also brought up separate, unverified claims of new ballistic missile launchers being transferred. But here is the critical takeaway. As of our July 26 reporting cutoff, there has been zero public corroboration from independent satellite imagery, NATO, or US intelligence to confirm this massive 30,000 figure. We just don't have proof that these troops are actively moving, present, or intended for combat.
Geographically speaking, the reported staging area in Voronezh places a potential force right within striking distance of the Ukrainian theater. But remember, this just highlights the claimed staging area based on intelligence allegations, not independent proof of a physical troop presence. It also highlights the highly contested Caspian Sea corridor, which really underscores some major logistical vulnerabilities in the wider region, something we'll dive into in just a few minutes.
Now, think about the sheer scale of this. Standard military structuring for an alleged force of 30,000 personnel requires a massive, highly observable footprint. You just can't hide 30,000 troops overnight. They require multiple division equivalents of infrastructure. We're talking extensive railway transport capacity, huge barracks, specialized training grounds, and, given past operational friction we've seen, thousands of language interpreters. This is a highly visible logistical variable. Basically, if this deployment is real, that required infrastructure is going to eventually offer concrete, measurable indicators for independent verification.
Section 3. Untangling North Korean figures. Reconciling historical data with new claims.
To really make sense of this new claim, we have to untangle the numbers, because things get confusing fast if you don't categorize them strictly. For instance, a 2024 labor account of 13,000 individuals entering Russia that is entirely separate from South Korean intelligence estimates of 13,000 shipping containers sent to Russia. And both of those are distinct from the estimated 14,000 to 15,000 active combat troops deployed to Kursk between 2024 and 2026. Then you have the 7,000 figure, which represents claimed Ukrainian intelligence estimates for total North Korean casualties in Kursk. Do not sum these numbers together. They are separate data points. The new 30,000 troop claim by Zelenskyy in July 2026 is a completely separate, unverified category sitting right on top of this established historical context.
Section 4. Tokayev's war freeze proposal, the diplomatic timeline, and Moscow's response.
Shifting gears over to our second variable, let's look at diplomacy. Speaking at the 22nd Kazakhstan-Russia Forum in Omsk, Kazakh President Tokayev officially proposed returning to the Istanbul Formula 2.0. Let's look at the timeline to understand where this comes from. In mid-2025, those Istanbul 2.0 negotiations yielded some localized agreements, like prisoner exchanges, but they totally failed to secure a broader ceasefire because the demands were just incompatible. Then, following that, we had the August 2025 summit in Anchorage, which led to heavily disputed narratives. Russia claimed an agreement was reached for Ukraine to cede territory, but the United States explicitly denies that. It is against this incredibly complex backdrop that Tokayev, on July 25, 2026, proposed freezing the war entirely.
Well, the response from Moscow was pretty much instantaneous. The very next day, July 26, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov strictly rejected this freeze proposal. Peskov stated that a freeze is impossible given Kyiv's position, and he reiterated Russia's maximalist demands, which of course include Ukrainian withdrawal from 4 claimed regions. Now, it's important to attribute this rejection specifically to Dmitry Peskov based on his official statements, so we avoid making any unsupported assumptions about prior coordination behind the scenes.
Section 5. Contemporaneous Caspian Economic Context, Pipeline Disruptions, and Maritime Security.
Right, so while all this diplomatic and military posturing is happening, there's a whole other layer of economic and security exposure going on in the Caspian region. In July 2026, the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, the CPC, suspended marine terminal loading operations. This is massive because Kazakhstan relies on the CPC for roughly 80% of its oil exports. Concurrently, Ukrainian media relayed unverified claims from their security service regarding drone strikes on Caspian Sea infrastructure. And on top of that, Iran's foreign ministry explicitly attributed a fatal explosion on a commercial vessel in the Caspian to Ukraine. But here's the absolute most important point. While these events expose extreme economic vulnerabilities for Kazakhstan, they remain contemporaneous context. No authoritative source has proven that these specific disruptions were the actual catalyst that prompted Tokayev's diplomatic proposal.
Just to zoom out for a second on the international law angle, UN Security Council resolutions strictly prohibit member states from providing arms or military assistance to the DPRK. However, explicitly classifying the integration of foreign combat troops under these specific UN texts, that actually remains a bit of a legal gray area that international bodies are watching incredibly closely right now.
Section 6. Scenarios and Future Indicators, Looking Ahead Without Assumptions.
So, what does this all mean moving forward? Without internal government documentation, analysts are currently weighing 2 main interpretations of that 30,000 troop figure. Interpretation A suggests it's exactly what it sounds like, a genuine, imminent staging reality and a massive military expansion. Interpretation B, however, suggests it might be preemptive signaling. Basically, Ukraine publicizing a specific, huge figure to generate urgency among Western allies to get expedited long-range strike authorizations and better air defense support. Both are entirely plausible analytical frameworks, but both currently lack conclusive evidence.
These interpretations branch out into 3 potential paths for the future. Scenario 1 involves the successful staging and integration of these 30,000 troops, providing a massive manpower boost to Russian forces. Scenario 2 suggests that severe operational friction, think language barriers, command integration issues, and immense logistical bottlenecks, drastically limits the actual battlefield effectiveness of any deployment. And finally, Scenario 3 envisions that despite Peskov's strict rejection, limited diplomatic initiatives might slowly gain traction, perhaps leading to localized pauses, even if a comprehensive settlement seems totally out of reach right now.
To cut through the noise and clarify the current unknowns, there are some very specific independent metrics we need to monitor. We're looking for independent satellite imagery corroborating massive logistical buildups in Voronezh and official NATO or U.S. intelligence statements directly confirming or denying that 30,000 figure. On the economic side, we need to watch for the resumption of CPC loading operations and independent visual verification of the claimed damage in the Caspian Sea. Diplomatically, any official follow-ups regarding the disputed Anchorage 2025 summit will be essential to track.
So we have documented diplomacy meeting unverified intelligence claims, all surrounded by very real regional economic disruption, which leaves us with one vital question. How long will it take for independent verification to emerge and finally bridge the gap between official claims and verified reality? And when that evidence does surface, what will it ultimately mean for the future of regional security? Let us know what you think. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.